Hi, welcome back to SQL Database Administration Hub. Today, we're going deep on TempDB, the most heavily used and most frequently misconfigured database in SQL Server. TempDB problems can silently degrade performance across your entire server, and knowing how to diagnose and fix them is a critical DBA skill. Let's get into it. TempDB is SQL Server's shared workspace. Every database on the server uses it for temporary tables, table variables, sorting operations, hash joins, row versioning for snapshot isolation, and dozens of other internal operations. Because it's shared by everyone, TempDB Contention,
where multiple sessions are competing for the same internal resources, can create a bottleneck that affects every user simultaneously.
In this video, we'll cover TempDB's internal structure, the most common contention problems and how they manifest, and the configuration and design changes that resolve them.
TempDB is recreated fresh every time SQL Server restarts. This means any objects created in TempDB, temp stored procedures, and other objects are destroyed on restart.
It's a volatile workspace by design.
Inside TempDB, there are two system tables that are particularly important to understand: the PFS page, page free space, and the GAM allocation map and shared global allocation map. These allocation pages are used to track which pages in TempDB are in use and which are free. When many sessions are simultaneing and dropping temporary objects, they all compete to update these same allocation pages,
Creating what's known as Allocation Page Contention.
This was historically the most severe TempDB contention problem, and the solution is multiple TempDB data files. Because each file has its own set of allocation pages,
This is exactly why we configured multiple TempDB files during the configuration video in Section 1.
TempDB also uses a feature called Uniform Extent Allocation for temp tables, introduced in SQL Server 2016, which further reduces allocation page contention. Beyond allocation page contention, there are several other TempDB issues that DBAs encounter regularly. Version store growth is a common TempDB problem. When RCSI or snapshot isolation is enabled, SQL Server stores previous versions of modified rows in TempDB's version store so that readers can access without taking locks. In high update environments, the version store can grow very large very quickly, filling TempDB disk space. To monitor version store size, query sys.dm_.
Long-running transactions that don't commit are the primary cause of version store bloations from being cleaned up. Identify and address long-running open transactions to control version store growth.
Excessive temp table creation is another common pattern. Applications that create and drop temporary tables in tight loops, especially from many concurrent sessions, generate heavy TempDB. Redesigning these patterns to use table variables for small datasets or to reuse temporary tables rather than repeatedly creating and dropping them can significantly reduce TempDB pressure.
TempDB disk space exhaustion happens when the version store, sort spills, or explicit temporary objects consume all available TempDB disk space. When TempDB runs out of space, Here are the most effective ways to resolve TempDB contention and prevent future problems. Multiple data files remain the most impactful configuration change. Ensure you have one TempDB data file per logical CPU core, equal size, with the same auto-growth settings, on fast storage. We covered this in the configuration video. If you haven't done this yet, do it now.
Resize TempDB files adequately. TempDB is recreated on restart, meaning it starts at its initial size every time SQL Server restarts. If the initial size
Causing auto-growth events. Set the initial size of TempDB files to cover your normal peak usage.
Move TempDB to fast storage. TempDB is extremely I/O-intensive. If possible, place TempDB files on dedicated SSDs or NVMe storage separate from your user database files. Monitor and control open transactions. Use sys.dm_transactions to identify long-run running transactions that are inflating the version store.
And work with application teams to address them.
To diagnose current TempDB space usage by object type, run internal object reserved page count 8 as internal objects KB.
Free space from sysdmdb file space usage.
And that's TempDB internals and contention issues covered. To recap, TempDB is recreated on every restart and serves as the shared workspace for the entire SQL Server instance.
Allocation page contention from too few data files is the most common TempDB problem, solved by multiple equally sized files.
Version store growth from snapshot isolation and long transactions can fill TempDB quickly and requires monitoring and transaction management.
And resolving contention comes down to proper file configuration, fast dedicated storage, adequate pre-sizing, and controlling long-running transactions. TempDB problems are often invisible, they become critical. Building good TempDB monitoring into your daily routine is the best way to catch problems before they impact users.
Subscribe so you don't miss the next video. And I'll see you there.
Generous Academy.